Donald Trump is panicking as Iran says it is preparing 1 million troops if the United States invades the Karg Islands or anywhere else in Iran. Now, Donald Trump has immediately responded by claiming he is entering into further fake negotiations with Iran, which Iran has immediately denied. But Donald Trump made this statement as the markets here in the United States are crashing. And so again, Donald Trump has tried to manipulate the market, but it seems the market is getting numb to all of his lies, where he'll make up something, then Iran, whether it's to the Wall Street Journal or through an intermediary or through Dropsite or through another, the Financial Times, will just say absolutely everything that Donald Trump is saying is not true. Let's just go through the events here. So Iran says, if you invade, we have more than 1 million fighters who are preparing for a ground battle. And Iran put that out through Tasman news agency, citing their own Iranian military sources. Then Donald Trump posts, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction. By the way, that's a war crime. By 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. So instinctively, we knew that Donald Trump was lying because everything that spews out of his mouth and vomits out of his face is an absolute lie. And then shortly thereafter, we heard from Iranian officials who said the following. Senior Iranian officials told Dropsite News that U.S. President Donald Trump was not being truthful in his post earlier on Truth Social, announcing an additional 5-day pause on his threat to bomb Iranian energy infrastructure at the request of Iran, with the official stating, Trump is not being truthful. We have not submitted any request regarding potential U.S. attacks. Now, you might be saying, well, that's a senior Iranian official, and they're saying that to Dropsite. Maybe that's a lie. Maybe they're not telling the truth. Well, then one of the individuals trying to be a mediator, I think probably from Pakistan, that the U.S. is trying to use to engage with Iran, then went to the Wall Street Journal and made it very clear Iran hasn't requested a pause on energy site strikes, the mediator says. So the same way that the former mediator, the foreign minister of Oman, basically said that the United States and Israel acted in a way that was inconsistent with the negotiations, where there was a deal that was reached in late February and that there were just technical details that needed to follow. But then the U.S. and Israel invaded Iran when there was a deal to be had. You're having the new mediator, likely from Pakistan, but it's unclear from where, telling the Wall Street Journal and others that what Donald Trump is saying is an absolute lie. Iran has not requested a 10-day pause on strikes on its energy plants and is yet to deliver a final response to the U.S. 15-point plan to end the war, according to, quote, peace talk mediators. This was reported by Wall Street Journal. But what we do know from this article is that Iran has ruled out discussing its missiles program as a starting point to talks and doesn't want to commit to ending enrichment of uranium forever, the mediators say. So don't even talk to us about dismantling our Shaheeds, our ballistic missiles of any range, intermediate or otherwise. We're not even going to have that conversation with you. And we want to enrich uranium. We saw what you did when you invaded us the last time. So we don't trust you. That's what Iran is saying. So Iran has already rejected the 15-point plan through the mediator. And then before that, you had senior Iranian officials basically saying no plan for talks appears to be realistic at this stage. So Iran says no plan for talks because there's no realistic view by the United States. Donald Trump sees the markets crashing yet again. Donald Trump lies and then says we've agreed to a 5-day period where we won't be doing war crimes by bombing the energy infrastructure. Iran responds, we're not asking for this. You're just making up, again, fake negotiations layered on fake negotiations. Now, Israel's Channel 14 reports that Iranian officials have always believed that ongoing negotiations now are an American intelligence op aimed at gathering precise information about leadership locations and decision-making centers. The report adds that this concern has led Tehran to avoid electronic communications and instead to rely on field intermediaries to manage sensitive contacts. Now, it should also be noted that Iran's military is releasing a video showing a message being placed on a missile ahead of launch, the latest in a series of such clips. These photos either reference Jeffrey Epstein or Trump being part of the Epstein class, or have photos of American soldiers coming home in American flag draped caskets. Analysts say this tactic, you see it right here, play the B-roll everybody, say the tactic reflects a broader effort to shape the narrative during the conflict. And what Iran is saying, however, first and foremost, we're not doing a deal. If you want to talk to us, don't even mention ballistic missiles or that we can never enrich uranium. Those aren't starting points. We've seen you in the United States, your military evacuating and abandoning the 13 military bases in the Middle East because of our Shahed and FPV drone swarms. We're being assisted by Russia while you lift sanctions against us in Russia. Iran is feeling emboldened right now, if anything. And so what Iran is signaling, though, is that they've got a, quote, special and unprecedented plan for the UAE and Bahrain. Iran's IRGC-linked Fars news agency, IRGC is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is their state regime. Fars news agency cites an informed military source, reports that Tehran has prepared special and unprecedented measures against the UAE and Bahrain in the event of any ground attack on Iranian islands in the Persian Gulf. The warning follows U.S. threats of a ground operation and alleged support from these Gulf states, including hosting bases and providing infrastructure and advanced technologies. Tehran said any response would be very damaging and instructive. And specifically, this infographic being circulated by Iranian media outlines key energy infrastructure across the UAE, drop site reports, including power stations, nuclear facilities, and solar hubs as potential targets in the event of escalation. Key sites being identified are desalination complex in Dubai, nuclear power plants and power stations in Abu Dhabi, other power plants in Dubai, and solar parks in Dubai and similar facilities in Bahrain. The report claims that strikes on these sites could trigger widespread blackouts and disrupt desalination industry and data centers with cascading effects on UAE's economy and regional trade. Experts cited in the report say the country's heavy reliance on centralized power infrastructure make these sites strategically critical. Also, Iran is now officially designating the Four Seasons and Sheraton hotels, as well as the presidential palace in Syria's capital, Damascus, as military targets, claiming the presence of American, Israeli, and British experts inside these locations make them fair targets to strike. Meanwhile, you have Foreign Minister of Iran, Araghchi, posting the following: the wise stances of the great religious authorities, the government, and the Iraqi people must be commended in condemning the aggression of America and the Zionist entities in standing alongside Iran, its government, and people in confronting this aggression. Your offering of condolences for the martyrdom of the leader of the revolution reflects the depth of the strong ties between the two peoples, for in times of hardship, true brothers are known. So the Iraqi government has now authorized its Shiite militias to attack American military bases in surrounding Arab nations, as well as in Iraq. So in essence, Iraq has now joined the war, which they have for some time though, shoulder to shoulder with Iran. Iraq and Iran together targeting American bases. And we've seen these FPV first-person viewing drones by these Shiite militias who get a lot of resources from Iran, who in turn gets a lot of resources from Russia, using it to strike Blackhawks and radars and others in American military bases with relative impunity. And we see those drone swarms moving around with those cameras that we have.
All right, you hear that? That's the sound of me opening an Olipop, and I've got to say, this has completely replaced traditional soda for me. Olipop is a new kind of soda that combines the classic soda taste with the benefits of a functional ingredient blend to support digestive health. And honestly, the best part? It really delivers on that taste that takes you back. For me, it's the root beer flavor. The first sip instantly brings me back to being a kid. Summer afternoons, grabbing a cold soda, that nostalgic, familiar taste. But now, I'm not reaching for traditional cola anymore, because Olipop is reimagining soda with high fiber and low sugar. I actually made the switch when I started being more intentional about what I was drinking day to day, and when you realize that 2 out of 3 Americans say they suffer from digestive issues, and 95% of Americans don't get the daily recommended amount of fiber, it just makes sense to reach for something that supports your lifestyle. Now, it's part of my routine. Afternoon pick-me-up, winding down at night, even just a me-time moment. Same great soda experience, just smarter. And right now, you can get a free can of Olipop. Just buy any 2 cans in the store, and they will pay you back for one. It works on any flavor, any retailer. Head to drinkolipop.com/Meidas to learn more. You can also find Olipop online or in the soda aisle and refrigerated section at thousands of retailers nationwide, including Walmart, Target, Costco, and Whole Foods. Trust me, once you try it, you are not going back to traditional soda.
Also, Iranian's President Masoud Pezeshkian also sent a big thank you to Russia and Russia's people and to Putin. He writes, President Putin, message and the support of the Russian people inspire us in this war. The resistance and the courage of the Iranian people promise new bonds that will ensure the security of East Asia by the countries of the region. On behalf of the people of Iran, I thank the government and people of Russia. We know that Russia is providing Iran with substantial military support, with more drones, with component parts, with active military intelligence, while Donald Trump continues to attack Ukraine and suck up to Putin, removing sanctions against Russian oil, removing sanctions against Iranian oil, removing sanctions against Belarus, helping Russia make the money to make the military weapons to attack Ukraine and to hand to Iran to attack American soldiers. You also have MB Ghalibaf, the head of Iran's parliament, mocking Pete Hegseth's comment where Hegseth said during that deranged cabinet meeting earlier today, for years, Iran told the world their missiles could only range 2 kilometers. Surprise, yet again, Iran lied. Ghalibaf posts this meme of a little child looking at Pete Hegseth like he's crazy. Iran continues to mock Donald Trump, his regime, and the United States. Never before has the United States been weaker. Also, Iran is tightening control over the Strait of Hormuz, forcing ships to share detailed data, reroute into the waters, and sometimes pay for passage, creating what analysts call a toll booth system, the AP is reporting. And Scott MacFarlane, who has recently joined the MeidasTouch network as our chief Washington, D.C. correspondent, he also runs at Scott MacFarlane News. He has his own YouTube site. Go check it out. Search at Scott MacFarlane News. Let's help him get 250,000 subscribers soon. He's interviewed numerous people on the Hill who say it's a bad effing idea, a terrible effing idea. Congress is losing its patience with the briefings. It's getting about Iran. All of this is a bad idea by Donald Trump. And other sources say that Donald Trump appears to be leaning towards ordering this major ground operation against Iran, as he continues to say that he's negotiating 5-day ceasefire deals or whatever he's saying regarding their energy infrastructure, which he's not doing. And lots of people see the buildup with the Marine Expeditionary Units, the 82nd Airborne Division, the Special Operations Unit, Navy Special Operations Unit. By the way, Trump and Hegseth fired the Navy Special Ops former commander, which is significant because now they're without one of their top people. But with all of the assets, people believe that this invasion of Iran and Karg could be imminent, in which case we expect to see all hell breaking loose and all-out war in the Middle East. Still, Donald Trump gets his briefings via 2-minute clips that are being curated to him by officials that show the U.S. and Israel blowing up things in Iran, and that's how Donald Trump is getting it through these hype videos, which again is deeply concerning that that's how Donald Trump is getting his news. With all of this going on, Donald Trump, as I mentioned, has lifted sanctions against Belarus as well, a Russian proxy. Donald Trump is sending J.D. Vance to try to lift up Viktor Orban in the next week, right before the big elections are set to take place in Hungary, where the pro-democracy party is expected to beat Orban, but Trump and Putin doing everything that they can to prop up Hungary right now. Aragchi also just posted, from the outset of this war, U.S. soldiers fled military bases in Gulf countries to hide in hotels and offices. They use Gulf country citizens as human shields. Hotels in U.S. deny bookings to officers who may endanger customers. GCC, Gulf country hotels should do the same as well. Also, these hardliners in Iran right now are saying, we need nuclear weapons in Iran. Never negotiate with America again. We want our nuclear weapons right now. And this, as we're learning more and more how the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps faction within Iran, the military is asserting a lot more power right now in this war, whereas maybe more of the power was in the Ayatollah before, but they had this mosaic, decentralized style of leadership, but we're seeing even a more assertive than before IRGC, as Iran, as I noted before, designating four-season Sheraton hotels in the palace and Syrian capital, Damascus, as valid military targets. I did the cabinet meeting that Donald Trump was held. It was that deranged cabinet meeting. Watch the whole thing where I show what happened in his cabinet meeting. But with everything that I'm telling you, Donald Trump was saying like, oh, people are saying this is a disaster, or I think things are going great. Here, play this clip.
The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know it. That's why they're talking to us. They wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over there.
And then Donald Trump starts saying, like, we're beating the shit out of Iran. We're beating the shit out of them. Here, play this clip.
The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
So are you thinking of taking control of Iran's oil?
It's an option. I mean, I wouldn't talk about it, but it's an option.
Is that something you thought about?
Well, in Venezuela, we've done very well working with Venezuela, certainly. We've taken in billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, Venezuela is doing better right now than they've ever done in the history of their country.
Okay, we're not. Let's be very clear what's really happening. I laid it out in this video. That's the truth. Do what you want with the truth. But let's just start with the objective reality of what's happening. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. Have a great day.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.